is why I don't chalk nothing up to me tripping. So there's this woman. She's 26 and lives alone in what she defines as a good neighborhood. I don't know what that means for everybody, but okay. So she said everything started like 2.5 months ago. She works 5 days a week and gets off every day at 3 p.m. She got a promotion at work and came home to flowers on her doorstep. They didn't have a note or say who they were from, so she just assumed it was one of her friends who she told about the promotion. She said she didn't put much thought into it and just assumed one of them would ask if she had got them. Nobody did. She said a couple of weeks went by and nobody mentioned the flowers, so she just forgot about them. Not I, said the cat. I would absolutely be thinking about the said flowers. If nobody said anything within the first 24 hours, putting everybody in the group chat, did one of y'all send me flowers? Because I need to know. Y'all seen Cross? Yeah, I need to know immediately. Who put these flowers on my doorstep? Anyways, one afternoon she gets home from work and she goes to fill up the kettle. She realizes that the kettle is already steaming, meaning it just had water boiling. She said she didn't think anything of it and just thought the kettle was being weird. You thought the kettle steaming, as if water had already been boiling in there, was just the kettle being weird. You live alone. You just got home from work. And that was your takeaway. So she says she starts noticing a bunch of small things around the house. Like one morning she decides to sleep in until 10:30. And when she gets up, there's already a chair pulled out of her table with a newspaper laid out. What are we actually talking about here? Another day she gets home and there's a bottle cap placed on her pillow. Y'all, these things would send me into a psychosis. I just feel like she's a little too casual for my liking. The newspaper on the table alone would have been enough for me to pack my bags. I'm getting out of here. I don't know if it's a person. I don't know if it's a ghost. I don't give a damn. It won't be me. I know who won't be staying here. That's what I know. But wait, there's more. So one weekend she goes to stay at a friend's house. She comes home that Sunday and notices that there's cigarette ash in the sink and a dirty cup on the counter. So two important things to note. She doesn't smoke. And also she put up her dishes before she went to her friend's house. Wee woo. At this point, you want to get got. I don't know. Maybe she's trying to spice up her life a little. I don't know. Because I don't understand why we've not contacted the authorities, installed cameras, something. I don't know. So before that incident, she said she hadn't told anybody about what was going on because she didn't want to come off as crazy or paranoid. Y'all always tell a trusted friend or adult if some weird stuff is going on. Because God forbid something happened, wouldn't nobody know nothing. Everybody would be confused. But after the cigarette ash situation, she tells her friends about what's going on. And her friend is like, you should install hidden cameras in the kitchen. Glad somebody has sense. And they kind of laugh about it like, yeah, there's probably nobody there. But like, yeah, let's do it anyway, girl, just in case. So the cameras have been set up for about a week. She's at work and she gets a notification that there's movement in her kitchen. Surprise, surprise. She opens her phone and sees a man walking from her kitchen to the bathroom. She says she immediately called the police when she saw this. This man has been your roommate for 2 months. In there making sandwiches, reading the paper, smoking his cigarettes, feet kicked up. Now you want to call the cops on him. At this point, he got tenant rights. As long as you don't let him stay.
Get ready with me while I tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal encounters, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. I was 16 years old, and my brother and I shared a bedroom. The room wasn't very large, so I had converted the closet into my own little sleeping area. It wasn't much more than a narrow space with a mattress and a few shelves, but I liked having my own little corner. It gave me a sense of privacy, and it felt cozy and safe. At least it had. I had several real plants hanging from hooks on the wall beside my bed. I loved taking care of them, and they made the tiny space feel alive instead of feeling like a closet. And when I went to bed that night, everything felt as it always had. I did my usual routine, looked around at my plants and decorations, noting how warm I felt, and I drifted off. At some point in the middle of the night, it's always the middle of the night. It's always the middle of the night. I suddenly opened my eyes. I'd woken up more suddenly than I was used to, so I was a bit startled, but looking around, the room looked exactly the way I remembered it. So I tried to calm down. That's when I realized I couldn't move. My entire body was frozen. I couldn't sit up, I couldn't lift my arms, I couldn't even turn my head. Only my eyes could move. And that's when my panic started to multiply. Something was wrong, and I knew it. As I shifted my eyes toward the far corner of my tiny room, I noticed someone standing there. Oh, absolutely not. Imagine you wake up out of nowhere, you're startled, your heart is racing, you don't know why, and then you realize, hey, I can't move. Already terrifying enough. The only thing that you really have control over is your eyes, and so you're kind of looking around, seeing what the heck is going on. And there's someone in the corner of your room. Oh my God. At first, it looked like a shadow, but the longer I stared, the clearer it became. It was a woman. She was so tall that her head nearly reached the ceiling. She wore a long dress that looked ancient. It was hanging loosely from her body, with shredded fabric dangling from the bottom. The dress stopped just above the floor, leaving a small gap where I should have been able to see feet. But instead, there was only darkness. She wasn't moving. She just stood there facing me, watching. I wanted to scream for my brother. I wanted to jump out of bed and run, but I couldn't move. And the harder I tried, the more trapped I felt. Then she took one slow step forward. Oh my God. She wasn't walking normally. She made jerk-like movements to almost hobble across my room in tiny, unnatural steps, getting closer inch by inch. Oh. Just picturing this in my head, absolutely terrifying. At this point, I couldn't breathe. I remember trying with every ounce of strength I had to make any sound at all. My mouth opened, but nothing would come out, not even a whisper. The figure kept getting closer still until she was standing beside my bed. I could feel her presence towering over me. Then, she slowly raised one arm. She stretched her hand toward the wall where my hanging plants were mounted. Her fingertips barely brushed the wooden shelf holding them, and the instant she touched it, I snapped awake. This time I could move. I sat straight up, releasing the scream I'd been trying to get out for what felt like forever. At that exact moment, every single hanging plant I had came crashing off the wall. Clay pots shattered across the floor. Soil exploded everywhere. One pot slammed directly into my bass guitar. Another fell so close to my face that I actually felt the air as it missed me. My cactus fell right beside my bed and missed landing on me by inches. I was shaking, staring at the mess scattered across the room. The hooks had to have come loose. Maybe the shelf finally gave out. It had to have just been a coincidence that everything fell apart the exact second I woke up. But the woman had reached out, and she had touched the wall. And that's when everything came crashing down. I've heard countless people explain sleep paralysis over the years. They say the figures aren't real. They say your brain creates them while you're between sleep and consciousness. And maybe that's true, and maybe that's exactly what happened. But I've slept in that room for years since that night, and I've never experienced sleep paralysis again. I've never seen that woman again either. And sometimes when I walk past the corner of the room, I still catch myself looking for the place where she was standing. Because if it was only a dream, then who knocked my plants off of the wall?
This is why if I'm not expecting nobody, I'm not opening that door. So there's this woman who lives in the rural Midwest in a house right off the highway. Her house was right in between two towns, basically on the county line, and they had a big circle driveway. If you drove into the driveway, you would be headed straight towards their barn. But if you curved to the right, you would be heading to their garage. And if you go past the garage, you could circle back around in front of the house and come back to where you started. They had two large double doors in the front of the house, but they said they hardly used them. They mainly used the door in the garage, which is pretty normal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody always used the back door, the side door. Like, nobody really be using the front doors. I mean, I guess some people use the front doors, but I don't know. Out in the country where I'm from, everybody use their back door and their side door. So one night, it's super late. She, her husband, and her 3-year-old are all asleep when the doorbell rings. It wakes her up, and she thought she was dreaming at first, but then she hears it again. So she wakes her husband up and tells him that somebody rang the doorbell, and he's like, are you sure? Like, I didn't hear anything. You sure you're not hearing things? And then it rings again. So she says it's really dark outside, but they have dusk till dawn lights, so most of the driveway is lit up. Now, I ain't know what no dusk till dawn light was. I ain't never heard of that. But apparently it's a light where, like, when the sun is going down, the light cuts on, and then, like, when the sun is rising, the lights cut back off. which I think is pretty convenient. That's pretty dope. Do I ever see one of them? I don't know. We just always got the porch light on. She says, unfortunately, you can't really see at the front door though, unless you actually open it up. She said you can't open one door at a time, or you can lift like the latch that's at the top and the bottom and open both doors at the same time. Now y'all got dusk till dawn lights. Y'all ain't got no damn Ring doorbell, a peephole. I don't know, like the only option is to open the door. I feel like y'all should put some other options in place. Maybe the Ring cameras won't have been in yet. I don't know. She did say this was like 10 years ago. But I know y'all got a damn peephole. Y'all got double doors. Y'all gotta have a peephole. A window by the door, something. So husband gets up and she follows. He decides he's gonna open the door. Why? Why? She's like, she wanna call the cops, but she knows that because they live on a county line, it's gonna take them a long time to get there. I don't give a damn how long it takes them to get there. Whoever's out there can wait till they get here. Because I'm not opening that door. I'm not opening that door. I got my 3-year-old in here. It's this late at night. We not expecting nobody. We can't even see. We ain't got no peephole. I'm not opening that damn door. But husband opens the door. So there's a girl standing out there. She looks like she's in her 20s. And they said she looks normal, except for the fact that she's standing at their door in the middle of the damn night. So she looks past the girl and sees that there's a car pulled up kind of like in the driveway right off of the road. Not up in the driveway, not around the circle, like not up to the house, but just like right off of the road. I'm not gonna lie, I had a really hard time picturing this driveway layout. Like I don't really understand it. Maybe if somebody else feel like they can understand what a driveway look like, draw a picture of it and put it in the comments for me. So shorty at the door is like, can I use y'all phone? Because my car battery died or something. I don't know, but I can't get it to start. So husband says, fuck no, and shuts the door. No, I'm kidding. That's not what he said. I wish that's what he would have said, but he didn't. But the wife is like, this is how horror movies start. What we can do is call the police for you. The girl keeps asking, just let me use the phone. Like, can I just come in and use your phone? Like, that's all I want to do. But wife is like, no, you're not coming in. Sorry. Not sorry, actually. They tell her, look, we gonna call the cops for you. That's that on that. And the girl like storms off the porch. So they watch her walk back to her car. They can see the girl. They can see the car. They call the police. The police are like, all right, like give us like 15 minutes. They don't sound that concerned. And the wife said, honestly, she wasn't that concerned either. She was like, it's just a girl. Like, she probably do got a dead battery, but I ain't finna let her in this house to find out. Like, and I don't blame her. I wouldn't be like, I'm sorry you got a dead battery, but you gonna have to sit in that car with that dead battery. We gonna call the folks for you though. So the girl then opens the trunk of her car and no lights come on. So it does indicate that her car battery is dead. And she's rummaging around the trunk. Then the driver's side door opens and out steps a guy. Then the back passenger door opens and out steps another guy. Upon seeing this, I would look at my husband and say, now what the hell you open that goddamn door for? Because for what? What you open that door for? And what they doing out there? And why she ain't tell us it was 2 other people in the car with her? Suspicious. So now all 3 of them are like rummaging through the trunk. Shorty says she can't hear what they're saying. She can't see what they're doing. They just like in the trunk and then they all get back in the car. So at this point, 5 minutes have gone by and she hoping that the sheriff just kind of hurries up. But she knows it's probably going to be about another 10 minutes before they get there. She said they're still in the car, like not moving. She can't really see in the car, but there's no light on in the car or anything. And like, there's nothing going on. She says she knows that they're sitting in the car and haven't gotten out of the car and like walked up to the house or anything because they would have had to walk right under the dusk till dawn lights and she definitely would have saw them. She says she thinks she sees the driver like light a cigarette in the car, but she's not 100% sure. And then she sees someone walking towards the car from the direction of the barn. It's a man. She doesn't know who he is. She said they don't have any neighbors. And he's coming from the back of their property, which has a creek. He walks under the dusk till dawn lights and goes straight to the car. Doesn't even look at the house. And he gets in the back. Woo. I don't know if they got that thing on them in that house, but I would have had that thing ready for whatever. Because at this point, what y'all doing out there? Because what you doing in my backyard? What was you going to find back there to start the car? And get this. He gets in the car starts, and they drive off. Now I thought the damn car was dead. I thought the car was dead. I almost believed that her battery was dead. No, I didn't. I never believed that. But the lady in the story almost believed it. So the cops arrive about 10 minutes later and They don't find nothing. I mean, what could they find? Like, I guess they go to look and see, like, if he had broken into anything, but I guess they don't find anything. And he like, well, we don't see nothing. Call us if they come back, I guess. How about you spend a night outside? How about that? Patrol, do a little patrol. Just do a little stakeout, if you would be so kind. But husband goes into the shop, which is apparently on their property, and gets his pew-pew, and they try to go back to sleep. I would be so unrested. I wouldn't be getting a lick of sleep. Not a lick. My eyes would burn from how long I would keep them open laying in that bed. But folks never came back. They don't know who they was. They don't know what they wanted. I don't give a damn who they was or what they wanted. Crazy business. Y'all stay safe out there.
Let's read some creepy Reddit stories about Rando Nautica. Not mine, but my boyfriend told me this a few nights ago. He and a few friends used the app when they were in their teens, 16 to 17. It took them down a dirt road in the middle of nowhere in the woods in Texas for a few miles to a barn. There, on the barn's balcony, stood a naked man holding a hook. This man then proceeded to jump down and chases them till they are about half a mile from their car. On the way back to the car, they passed through a smaller shack containing hooks, and one of the group grabbed two. They still have these hooks to this day, because other than that, they thought they had all hallucinated. Apparently, this was in Texas near an area where the Hookman murders happened in the 50s. To this day, my boyfriend wonders if he met a serial killer or just some random psycho, and they wonder what would have happened if they had entered that barn. I remember a few years ago, I went randonauting with my then boyfriend. I can't remember what I put in for the second thing, but the first thing was fortune, and we were led to a super nice neighborhood. I had no idea it even existed. It was so far out of the way, and it felt surreal. We kept driving around, and finally, after getting bored, I think I set it to anomaly or something, and it led us to the driveway of a house nearby. It looked normal, but there were electricity wires hovering at the end of the driveway just above us, right at the point's coordinates. It was normal for most houses in the area we'd lived in, but there was red string tied in a knot on the lowest wire, almost like it was waiting for us. We didn't get out of the car, but it felt weird the whole way back, and we thought we were being followed, so we turned into a gas station. It's so weird because we never could find that rich neighborhood again. Maybe it's just fault of memory, but the whole time something felt off. Went on randonauting with the intent of money. Pin brought near a convenience store with 2 ATM machines inside. So I thought, yeah, right, that's got money in it, but I have to withdraw. But what I saw in front of the convenience store where the actual pin is was unsettling. A man with a paper bag standing on the actual spot, looking at me as I was standing in front of the convenience store. Next to him was a truck with 2 other guys on the phone. As I looked away walking, they were all looking at me, with one of them pointing at me as if they want to run after me. I ran fast and never looked back. A few years back, my friend and I decided to randonaut later at night. We set our intention to something exciting, and it brought us to the train tracks in our neighborhood. As we pulled up, there was an oncoming train and a man who immediately drove his car around the barriers and head on into the train. We freaked out, obviously, and called the police to report it. I think he ended up seriously injured, but lived, fortunately. My best friend and I randonauted like 4 years ago and found this creepy abandoned gas station, biking distance from my house, at 2 a.m. It still had signs up for 65-cent gas and everything. The building was gone, just gas pumps standing on an empty piece of concrete in the middle of a busy part of town. Kinda cool, kinda creepy. The actual creepy part came when we went looking for that gas station again a couple days later and could not find it anywhere, or even anywhere it could have been. It just disappeared. I used to live in a place with huge organized crime problems. So one day I was testing the app with a friend, and I told him to try it and think of some intention. The location given was in the middle of nowhere, a couple of miles outside the city. I asked him what he thought of, and he said, dead bodies. I told him I wasn't going there at all, so we found other cool places. Fast forward a few months, I moved away, but kept following that city's local news agencies on social media, mainly because it's a hassle to unfollow each one.
One day, I read on my feed that a group of volunteers dedicated to look for people kidnapped by criminals had found a few bodies in the exact same location that had been given to us by Rando Nautica. I sent the article to my friend, and he couldn't believe it either. It was very creepy. Okay, I've never used Rando Nautica before, but after reading these stories, like, I kind of want to. Like, I want to see if I see anything scary. Let me know if you've ever used Rando Nautica and if anything creepy or weird happened to you.
Let's read a scary story that was DM'd to me, and it's pretty long, so buckle up. I used to live in a small town in Texas. My parents still live there today, and so does my brother and his wife, but I just can't go back because of what happened this night. I don't know if it has anything to do with what I experienced, but I had lost a brother years before this, and I saw him the night he died after begging to see him one more time because I felt like I would die if I didn't. I now wonder if I somehow unknowingly opened a door that I should have left closed. Anyway, there's this little man-made old graveyard in the town I had been investigating for years just for fun. I'm not a pro or anything, but I've done enough of these at this graveyard and other places, and I don't scare easily. Usually, it's just quiet nights and cold spots. Maybe a glimpse of something, nothing crazy. The place isn't big, only a few graves and some trees scattered around. No fence, it's pretty open and surrounded by bushes and trees and just empty fields, and 2 little houses in the back that belong to the family that take care of the graveyard. I've been there a bunch, both day and night. Like I said, I had been coming to this graveyard for years, and I knew every headstone by heart. That night, I had been out there for a while already, a good 30 minutes, maybe longer. Everything was calm, nothing weird, although to be honest, from the time I got there, something just didn't feel right, but I ignored it and continued my investigation. I was walking through towards the back, towards the houses again, when I noticed her standing near one of the trees. It threw me off because I hadn't seen her before, and I would have noticed someone else walking around. It's open enough that you can see the whole place from pretty much anywhere, but she was just suddenly there, like she popped up out of nowhere. And the air, I don't really know how to describe it, but it changed. It no longer felt safe. The slight breeze that had been happening that night stopped, like the wind itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen. She had on blue jeans and a blue hoodie. One of the few houses around had a light on outside, and it was hitting her from behind, so she was outlined in light, but her front was dark. I couldn't see her face at all. I remember feeling ridiculous because I immediately felt afraid, because I noticed that suddenly everything had gone quiet, and even the crickets that had been chirping earlier went quiet. Mind you, I had been investigating haunted places by myself and with others for years, and I had never been this afraid. Unfortunately, by this time, I had a lot happening in my life, and I haven't ever been this afraid. It was like a primal, instinctual fear. But something about her just felt off. But where I come from, when you show up to investigate somewhere and someone else is already there, it's just common courtesy to say hi. Let them know you're around so you don't mess with their investigation or accidentally scare them. So I did. I put my feelings aside, convinced myself I was being ridiculous, and decided to talk to her. I said, hey, but I didn't get a response, so I tried again. I said, hey, sorry if I distracted you. I didn't know anyone else was here. Do you live in this small town? Which I knew she didn't because it's a small town. Even if you don't know everyone personally, you get used to seeing people around, and you know when you see someone if they live there or not. But I was just trying to get her to talk to me. And I kept talking to her, trying to be polite. I don't even remember what I was saying, I just remember her silence. Still nothing. No sound, no movement, just standing there. So I started walking a little bit backward the way I had come. I have never felt that fear and unease. I realized that the way that she was holding herself didn't seem normal. Don't get me wrong, she was standing there like a normal person, but she was tense, unlike the way most people stand relaxed. It was like she was getting ready to lunge at me, and that's when she took one slow step toward me. My gut immediately went cold, like my brain hadn't caught up yet, but something in me knew it was off. I took an immediate step back, and for a couple seconds we both just stood there. Until it happened again. She stepped forward and I stepped back, and the only way I can describe it is the feeling of being prey. I shined my flashlight at her and finally saw her face, or where her face should have been, and there was nothing. Just smooth skin, completely blank, with like places where eyes and a nose and a mouth should have been but weren't. Just smooth skin. And then she started moving fast, like running straight at me, and I took off. I've never run that fast in my life. I could hear her footsteps behind me getting closer every time I looked back until I got to my house. I also want to mention this is a man-made graveyard. It's not smooth. It's very uneven and not uncommon to trip a lot there, and that's what I was doing, but I never heard this lady trip once. I reached my porch and turned around and she was gone. Just the trees, the neighbors' houses, and the empty streets. But the stillness and quiet was still there. I stood there shaking, trying to breathe, because I've been doing this kind of thing for years and nothing has ever scared me like that woman did. I went back the next morning in the daylight. Everything looked normal again, but it didn't feel right. The air felt heavier, just like the night before. I haven't gone back since that day. I moved away a few months later and I don't go ghost hunting anymore.